This conference will now be recorded.
Well, today I'm going to be going over the last two sections of Unit 2, and that's still on some financial information. So today we're going to be talking about loans and 401k plans. Now, next week, during the whole week is that's the window where you have to take exam number 2. I have to double check if I submitted the paperwork for that one or not. If not, I'll do it today, and you can get a time scheduled for that. But Monday's class, what I will do is it'll be just a review, and I'll just go over the highlights of what to know for the exam. I'll go through some different sections and just remind you of how to do a few of these types of problems. So Monday's class is just a review, and then you'll need to take the exam by next Saturday. And please be mindful of your testing centers in your area. So you need to take the test by April 6th. Okay. So some testing centers don't have Saturday hours, so just be careful with that. You can use ProctorU if you wish, but if you're going to use ProctorU, please let me know so I could submit the information to them. Um, I don't think anyone used ProctorU last time from what I remember. Uh, but that's your other option for you. So if you can't make it a time or you can't get it in your schedule to get where they have open, your other option is using ProctorU, and that's all explained in the syllabus there. Okay, so what I'm going to start talking about today is our second project. This is our final project. This will be due, and it is, the due date is set in there. This is due on April 8th. So 2 weeks from today, you have 2 weeks to complete this. This case, you're not going to be submitting uh, an Excel sheet to me, even though I think it says at the end, submit the Excel sheet. I don't need the Excel sheet. This is just going to be a written report, but as we're going to be talking about today, you're going to need to use Excel to find some of the answers. So I'm going to go through the directions right now for the project so that while I'm talking about the material today, I can say, okay, this is what you're going to be doing for the project. And then hopefully it'll tie in together and make sense. So what you're going to be doing is thinking about your future. After you get your future degree, what's it going to be like for you to set up a savings plan, or if you wanted to purchase a home or something like that. And so it's kind of interesting. Everybody really does find this project really relevant, very interesting, and they really like it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be comparing your future salary on your future degree that you're, attaining here at Ivy Tech with that of someone who didn't get a degree. And we're going to say the high school graduate here. Now, the high school graduate, we're going to use the salary of $19,000. And this is an actual amount. So when you go and you look up, and it varies from year to year depending on the economy. But typically, when you go look up different states, different areas, 19,000 is an average of what a high school graduate would make with no particular advanced training. Okay, so you're going to go to this website here and you're going to look up, this is a government website, and you're going to look up the annual median wage. Okay, make sure you're using the correct column there when you're going to be looking that up. And so if you're going to be a nurse or you're going into business or something like that, you should be able to find that. I mean, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of different professions there. I've only had one person who didn't find their degree that they were looking for in all the years we've been working with this. Okay, so take a look, find that. All right, so that's in section 1 here. And once you have your future salary and you have we already know what the high school graduate's going to make. In the first section, you're just going to be comparing the two salaries. So what you're going to want to do is compare it, but remember, we've already talked about absolute and relative change. So that's what you're going to want to do here. So remember, absolute change has the units attached. So we're going to be talking a dollar difference between your salary and the high school graduate. And relative change is going to be a percent. Remember, that's that percent of change. So, you could say I'm making, you know, 5,000 more than the high school graduate, or 10,000 more than the high school graduate, which is a 36% increase or something like that. Or, it's 36% more. Okay. Or if you use it in the opposite direction, the high school graduate would be earning so much less than me. Okay, so it just depends which you use as the new value, which is you old. But typically people use the reference value is the 1900 as the high school graduate, and the new value it would be what you're getting, because you're going to get a new degree. So typically people do it that way. Okay, and that's basically section 1. All right, now section 2, you're going to be comparing housing costs, and we're going to be talking about that today. And okay, it says I got audio again. Sorry about that. I don't know why I go in and out every now and then. Okay, so the next thing you're going to be doing is taking a quarter of your uh, monthly income, and that's going to be your money that you're going to say you can afford for a mortgage. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to research and find some APR rates, that annual percentage rate for mortgages. All right, so you can go online, you could look at banks, you can go to other mortgage companies and look that up, but you are going to have to tell me where you found that. So you're going to have to cite the source. And I'm okay if when you cite the source, you just give me, the official website as part of the written report here. Here's the APR. I found it at this website, blah, 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 and then just copy the whole website there so that I can verify that this is an actual number that you found here. Okay, and it actually says, don't forget to cite the source here. Then you're going to research housing costs in an area where you would like to live. Now, you don't have to live where you're currently at. So if you graduate and you want to live someplace else, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you put that in the report that, once I graduate, I'm going to move to, wherever state, and look up housing costs in that particular area where you're looking to move to. Everything is online now, so it's really nice. You can look up different uh, companies that would show you houses, real estate agencies, and all that. Okay, once again, you want to cite the source where you found the housing costs here. All right, so once you find those things, then it says, will your future salary allow you to afford the house you want, or should you consider other housing options? How much more or less must you spend to get the house you want? So first of all, look up the house you want. Then we're going to be showing you today how you can calculate what your payments are going to be and how much of a house you can actually afford based on your salary. And then, you're going to see if it doesn't if you're looking for something that's maybe a little out of your budget, tell me so in your report, and then look for the next best thing. So you're going to have to look for, like, okay, I really wanted to get this house that was 500,000, but my salary won't allow it, so I had to go down to 300,000 or something like that. So it's amazing how much you can afford when you actually do these costs here. All right, so that is section 2. And in addition to finding that and telling me that, you also want to be comparing what house can the high school graduate afford, and then what you can afford. Okay, so once again, you're comparing the two. Always putting in, here's what they can earn, here's what I can earn. Okay, and then over here, retirement comparisons, we're going to be talking about 401k plans today. And so we're going to assume that you're putting money away and the annual return rate is 5.75. We're going to assume that you're taking 9% of your gross monthly income and you're putting that into your 401k investment here. Okay, so same thing for the high school graduate, 9% of what they would get per month. Now, you're going to be using Excel to determine the balance after 40 years. Now, the reason why we say 40 years, that's usually about the maximum, because people who, just get out of high school, they start going to college and they graduate from college, they're usually somewhere in their 20s when they get their degree. And so you know that we don't typically consider retirement until 65 or older. And so that's why we say 40 years is kind of the maximum. But we know that, there's some people that, like myself, I didn't actually finish doing some of this until I was in my 30s. So, but follow what they're saying here, the 40 years here. But if you want to find out what it's like for you, you can put in some other numbers there, and you can even write about that in here too. Okay, so don't forget, you're comparing your future savings to what the high school graduate is going to have saved. Okay, and you always want to be telling me what Excel functions you're going to be using. So for section 2 and for section 3, you want to make sure you're saying, this is what I typed into Excel, and this is what Excel gave me as the answer. And I'm going to be showing you that today. All right, and that's what section 3 is about, and don't forget to do that comparison there. When we do the comparisons, it's always a great idea to do absolute and relative change with that. Always a good idea. Okay, so then $1 million retirement. So we're still assuming that this is 5.75 return. And it says, what adjustments would you have to make to your total investments to reach $1 million at retirement? Do you have to consider this? Oh, it says you do have to consider this for the high school graduate. So remember, you're putting away 9%. So if you're putting away that after 40 years, would you reach $1 million technically? If not, what are you going to have to change? So typically it's the percent of money. You want to change that up, and it's real easy to do within your equation. You can change things and see, and how long is that going to take? Okay, so once again, talk about what you would do and what would your high school counterpart do also. Okay, so here's the project checklist, and I will literally be going through making sure you have all these components. So this, when you're going to be submitting it to me, it is just a written report that I'm looking for. You do not have to give me your Excel. You're just using Excel as a calculator in this case, because a lot of the formulas that we're using, they're just way too difficult to do by hand. And there's so much room for error when you're doing it by hand that it's so much easier to just use Excel to be able to do that built-in function. All right, so relative changes. Remember, always do absolute relative change. Just keep a habit of that so that you make sure you get those in there. Your opening paragraph, remember, this is a written report, so I want to see an opening paragraph. Every time there is a new idea or new topic that you're talking about, it should be a new paragraph. So remember, keep that idea of what did you do when you were writing reports in your English class there, okay? Because I'll be a little bit more of a stickler this time around. All right. Also, always be comparing your expected salary versus the high school graduate. All right, and here's just the other items that we've gone through. Make sure you reread this and you don't have a lot of errors, especially don't wait till the last minute to try to submit this. That's where I see a lot of errors, and I could see what time this gets submitted. So usually when somebody waits till the last minute to get this done, they miss many components of it, and it's really sloppily written. So please don't wait until the last minute to do this. Do it while everything is fresh in your mind. Okay. You don't have to have the spreadsheet here, so I'm not worrying about that. Okay, and you're going to be submitting it on time through the link there. And I think even if it's late, it won't accept the submission there. All right, so just, kind of keep in mind. Also, this is highlighted in red. The project should be your own original work. Copying someone else's work is considered cheating, and sharing it with someone else is considered cheating. So just keep in mind, we do run these through programs that do check for identical papers, and it'll actually tell us where you got it from. And, so we have had this happen in the past. So, these change every single semester. So if maybe by chance you registered for this class before and life got in the way and you couldn't complete it, and now you're taking the class again, please don't recycle your old paper, because that'll show up as using another document there. So they're always different. So keep that in mind. Okay, so where it says submit both, I don't need both. I just want the Word file with your written report. Make sure you're putting everything in there. Show me what calculation, what did I put into Excel, and here's what Excel gave me as the answer. Okay. So this is the project in a nutshell. In this case, I'm not going to be looking at any Excel sheets ahead of time or the project ahead of time, because we don't need to, because it's just going to be a written report. But feel free to ask me any questions, email me anything. If you're not quite sure how to, write something, how to do something, I'd be happy to answer any questions with that. Ooh, excuse me. Okay, so let's go through the parts that are going to be making up our project here. So we're going to be talking about loans today. Okay. So when we talk about, when we talk about loans, a lot of times mortgages is going to be the biggest item that you're going to be borrowing and working towards. So sometimes it's a better deal to actually get yourself a house and purchase it, because then you're putting equity into it. You actually own it, versus if you're paying rent. So when you're paying rent, that money doesn't get invested for the future. Because a lot of people, when they go to sell their house again, you usually make a little bit of money back on that. All right, so we're going to be looking at what happens when we have different mortgage rates here, different APR rates here. Now, typically, when we're looking at rates for mortgages, those are typically a little bit less than you would get for an automobile, just because you're going to be taking it out for a much longer time period here. So take a look here. We're going to see the impact of 3 different interest rates here on this home. And you can see that we calculated what the monthly payment is going to be based on the 3 annual percentage rates here, 3%, 4%, 5%. And we're going to see what is the total over time here. So if we were going to be having a mortgage of $100,000, if I was just getting a 3% over the life of that loan, I'm going to be paying $151,000. Okay, now keep in mind that's if I just pay this minimum amount. So if I do pay a little bit more, remember the finance charge is always based on that balance that's carried over. So the more money I pay off of this each month, the less interest I will be paying over the life of this loan. And that's a really good thing to do, especially with mortgages and car loans, is in the beginning of the loan, try to pay as much as you possibly can, because that helps reduce the actual principal. In other words, the money that you still owe. Remember, your payments first pay off the interest. Anything left over goes towards the principal there. So you can see the difference between these these different percentage rates here. So that's why when we talked about getting a good credit rating, you want to be able to have a good credit rating so you get the lowest APR rate as possible here. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, okay, how much more is the 5% over 30 years? You can see the differences here. So it really does make a difference here. So even though the percentage rate looks like it's from 3% to 5% is just 2%, it's actually not 2% of that $100,000, because remember, that's over a time of, in this case, a 30-year mortgage here. So that would only be $41, that 2%. And so it's not. Okay, 2% difference. I'm sorry, 41,000, sorry, is far different than $2,000. Sorry about that. It's 41,000 difference here. So it really does make a difference to try to get that least amount. Oop. Okay, so how are we going to do this? So in this particular case, we're going to be, I think I skipped a slide here. Yeah, I skipped a slide here. We're going to be working through a scenario here, and we're going to look at Roger here. Now, Roger wants to get a loan. Okay, he found a house for $115,900. He's agreed to pay 20% down payment. Now, a lot of times when you are going to be getting a mortgage, they do ask that you put a down payment to get a better APR rate. All right, so 20%, remember, we're going to convert that into a decimal, and then this is what he's going to wind up paying as his down payment. So his actual mortgage is going to be that total amount of the house minus his down payment. So he's actually going to be taking out $92,720 for that mortgage. Now, he found an APR rate of 3.75, and in this case, he's going to wind up paying it over 20 years. Now, typically, you wind up seeing it either 10 years, no, not 10 years, I'm sorry, 15 years, 20 years, or 30 years for a mortgage. So it's usually like that. I'm sure you can get other amounts, but those are typically the most popular that you will see. All right, so how are we going to calculate this? This is something just way too confusing and too many steps to do on our own with the calculator. So what we're going to do is the highlighted equation here. So in Excel, we're going to type =PMT, and it's automatically going to ask me, okay, what else is the rest of the information? And you can see here. So the first thing you're going to be putting in is the monthly interest rate. So remember, the monthly interest rate, we convert that to a decimal and divide by 12. Now notice there's a comma here. We have to put that comma after the rate. Now the middle one is the number of payments. Well, he's going to be paying it 12 times a year for 20 years. So we can say 12 times 20 or 20 times 12, doesn't make a difference. Comma, and it says the amount of the mortgage. Notice this is a negative number. The reason why it's a negative number is because this money is coming out of somebody's pocket. And so this is what I'm paying. So that's why we have it as a negative value here. Oops. So here's what it's going to look like actually in Excel. =PMT. Here is my interest rate. Divide it by 12, comma, 20 times 12, because 12 times a year for 20 years, comma, and then a negative 92,720. Then you're going to hit enter, and Excel is going to tell you what your monthly payment is going to be. So in this case, it shows that the monthly payment is going to be $549.73. Okay. Now, here it just kind of talks all about that. So this is what you're going to be showing me when you're writing your report for that project. This is what I typed into Excel based on the APR I found at this and this website or this company, and this is what Excel gave me back as the answer. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be looking for in the report there. Okay, so now, there we go. Oh, whoops, sorry about that. So it says, by way of comparison, rental rates for a 2-bedroom house range from $600 to $1,200 per month in Indiana, depending on the location. And so you can actually see that his mortgage is actually less than an actual rental rate. Plus, he's building equity in that. He owns that, so he'll be able to possibly make some profit on it later on when he goes to sell that. Now, I can guarantee that they're going to ask you these questions. Hint, hint, on the homework, quizzes, and exam. So let's make sure we understand these next 3 questions here. So how much would Roger pay in mortgage payments over that 20-year loan? Now, we're just assuming he's only paying that monthly payment. Okay, so here's his monthly payment of $549.73. He's going to do that 12 times a year because that's his monthly payment, and he's doing it for 20 years. So his total mortgage cost over this whole time is going to cost him over $131,000. That includes the interest. Now, how much interest is he going to pay? Well, if I know this is the total he's paying over those 20 years, and I subtract the amount he borrowed as the mortgage, whatever's left over is the interest. So you can see that he paid over $39,000 worth of interest. That's why it's important to pay as much as you possibly can in the beginning of those loans or those mortgages, because it reduces your balance quicker. That means you pay less money in interest over the life of that loan. Okay, now this next question you're going to see come up many times also. And we remember ratio. They'll tell us what order they want this ratio to be. What is the ratio of what he pays in interest to the total mortgage payment? So it's telling me the order. Interest is first, mortgage payments is second. So interest is in the numerator over his total that he paid over the life of the loan. And you can see there's my decimal equivalent. If I convert that into a percent, he's paying almost 30%. So 29.7% of his money went towards the interest. Okay, so understand these 3 questions if they're going to ask you something like that on the quiz or exams there. Okay, so that's a lot of interest. Each payment consists of interest as well as principal. Okay, but remember, every time he makes a payment, the first thing that it does is pay off the interest. Anything left over goes towards the principal. In other words, what he owes. So how much interest would he owe for the very first month? So if we just think about it, what is the interest on that very first month? So we take the APR divided by 12 for monthly, divided by his balance. So he's paying $289.75 that very first month just in interest. So remember, he's paying that $549. So if we take away the interest, that means off the money he's taking off what he actually owes is only $259. All right, so that's why it's always important, if you possibly can afford it, pay as much as you possibly can. All right, there are some people that also, sometimes their institution will say to break up your payment, pay half of it in the beginning of the month and half of it in the middle of the month, because if you pay half in the beginning, it's going to pay off some of that remaining balance, so you won't have to pay as much interest in the long run there. So if you can't afford extra money, break up the one payment into 2 equal payments and pay at the 1st of the month and the 15th of the month. So you're still paying the same amount, but it's going to help you in the long run. Okay, so what will his balance be at the start of month 2? So if we subtract what he's actually paying off, his loan amount, this is how much he actually owes on the house. He really doesn't owe as much because, he did have some balance decreased. Okay, so here's a table very similar to what we did with the credit card balance. We're figuring out the monthly interest rate minus his mortgage payment. Okay, and then you can see his mortgage was decreased by so much, and then that carries over into this next column. Now, this is what is referred to as an amortization table. So this particular one is going by months, and it shows you if you're only making the minimum payment based on that interest rate, here's what the balance is going to be every single month after that loan. So sometimes the banks will give you a readout of that, or they'll forward that to you via a document, electronic document. Sometimes they also do it by year. So if you're paying off so much per year, it'll actually show that. So this is what they mean by an amortization table. It's showing you the balance over the lifetime of that particular loan there. Okay, you can also use this for other types of loans like car loans and student loans. So these payment function there in Excel actually works very well for that. So let's take a look at a car payment. All right, so we have Andrea. She wants to buy a car that she really likes. So she finds a 2016 Chevy Camaro, that's $38,000. She has $4,000 for a down payment, and the bank is going to give her 3% APR on a 60-month loan. So 60 months is actually 5 years, and that's typical for a new car. So what is going to be the actual amount she borrows? So remember, we're going to take away her down payment, and then this is what she's actually going to be borrowing. All right, she wants to figure out what her monthly payments are going to be. So remember, for payment, this is what we would type into Excel, =, PMT for payment, and then it's going to ask you the rest of the information. So the first part is the rate. So we're going to convert that to a decimal. We want the monthly rate, so we're going to divide by 12, comma, what are the total payments? Well, it already says 60 months, so we could just put the whole number 60 there, comma, and then remember she's going to be borrowing 34,000, and that's coming out of her pocket, so that should be a negative number here. So Excel is going to come back and say that her payments are going to be $610.94. Okay, now what's going to be the payments over the lifetime of that car loan? Well, if she's paying that for 60 payments, this is going to be what her total amount is going to be. So if we subtract the original amount she's borrowing over those 5 years' time, she's going to be paying over $2,600 in interest. Okay, so once again, it's asking those similar questions again. What's the total over the life of that loan? What is going to be the interest that is paid? All right, now because she has a low credit score, she does need a cosigner, but her parents really don't want to cosign for her, but they offer that they can buy their 2013 Ford Fusion for $15,000. Well, the bank is offering a 3.25% on that for 60 months because it's more of a used car. And so let's work through this again. So once again, she puts down her $4,000 payment, and that means she's only going to owe $11,000. So that's what she has to borrow. Let's figure out what her payments are going to be. =, PMT for payment, monthly interest rate, comma, total number of payments, comma, and then a minus sign since it's coming out of her pocket. 11,000 is what she's borrowing. Excel then is going to tell me it's going to be $198.88. So how much is she going to save over the life of this loan compared to the other one? She's going to wind up saving over $24,000. Okay, so this is how you're going to be doing it. And this is a great idea. So if you know like how much you want to borrow in this particular case, this is what I can afford as a payment, or maybe you want to try it out and see how much can you afford. And we'll show you another formula in just a moment. You can play around with this for car loans and stuff on your own in Excel. So this is pretty doggone helpful here. Okay, so we're going to look at something here comparing loans, and we're going to talk about another function coming up here. So we've got Brian and his wife. He's moved to another area, and they want to get a condo, and his wife found the perfect one, but it's $125,000 for the mortgage. Now, he really wants to try to go for a 15-year mortgage because he wants to be able to pay it off a little bit quicker. And you also get a better APR rate if you're using less number of years to pay it off. Now, he has to figure out if he can do this. So let's walk through and see what those payments are going to be. So equal sign. For the 30-year fixed mortgage, we're going to compare the 30-year and the 15-year. So here would be the interest for the 30-year divided by 12. 30 years, 12 times a year, that's the total number of payments, comma, and then that mortgage is $125,000. So if he goes for the 30-year fixed, he's going to get a payment of $614.92. Okay, that means over the lifetime of that loan, remember here's his payments, 12 times a year for 30 years, he's going to wind up paying over $221,000 on that. Now compared to the 15-year fixed mortgage, so here's the new interest rate over 12. Here's 15 years times 12 times a year, and then it's still the same amount for that condo that they're going to borrow. And notice his payments go up. Okay, so his payments really considerably go up, $893.60. So over the lifetime of that 15-year mortgage, though, he's only going to wind up paying $160,000 some odd dollars on that whole mortgage there. So obviously, the 30-year loan has smaller payments, but you're going to be paying that over a longer period of time. You pay more in the end. So if he can swing it, the better deal is actually that 15-year mortgage. It's going to cost him less in the long run. So let's see if he can afford that. All right. This is called a total expense ratio. Now, this is just one example. Now, sometimes when you go to lending institutions, this is what they'll do. For our project, though, remember we said you're going to be paying, what was that, a fourth? Let me go back here. You're going to be paying 1/4 of your gross monthly income. So you don't have to do this fancy thing that I'm going to show you in the book. We're making it much easier. You're just going to take whatever monthly money you're making, and you're going to take 1/4 of that. That's what you're putting aside for your mortgage payments. Okay. All right. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll take, your monthly income minus any housing expenses like property taxes, homeowners insurance, and then they'll also subtract any car loans or student loans, any other credit cards that you're already paying. So this is one way that mortgage institutions come up with how much you can afford. Remember, this is just one way. We're going to ask you just to take 1/4 of your monthly. We're making it easy. All right, so if we did this based on everything they owe, you can see that after they pay off all these things and we look at their combined salaries, they can afford $875 a month. Now, When we compare it, remember that other mortgage was a little bit more. It was $893. So he really can't afford that 15-year mortgage. He's going to have to go with either the 30-year mortgage or try to find something else that he can afford. So if he really wants to do something like that, how much house can he afford if this is the monthly payment that is his maximum there? And mortgage institutions really do this. They'll look and see, they'll either take a percentage of your monthly income, or they'll look at what else you owe. Okay, so in order to figure out how much that you can afford to buy based on your monthly payments that you can afford, which was at $875, we're going to use something called present value. This is how much I can afford right now in the present. So once again, oops, sorry. I lost it. There we go. It is a monthly payment here. We're going to be looking at. Okay, and a little bit different formula here. We're going to put an equal sign, and then we're going to type in PV for present value. This is what I can afford right now in the present. Okay, so you're going to be using this when you figure out that 1/4 of your salary. Okay, and you can plug that in here to figure out how much of a mortgage you can afford. And then once you figure out how much of a mortgage you can afford, you're going to compare it to your dream house that you found online. Does it fall in line with that? So you're going to be using that in that section there. So you're going to take that APR rate, that monthly, so divide it by 12, and you see that's what they did. They took the 30-year, divide it by 12. Number of payments, so he's going to do it 12 times a year for 30 years, comma. And then remember, the most he can afford is $875. It's coming out of his pocket, so it's a negative number, okay? And we put negative 875. Now this is based on the 30-year mortgage because he can't afford the 15-year mortgage. So when you put that into Excel, it's going to come back and it's saying, well, if you want to go with the 30-year mortgage, you can afford $177,000 some odd dollars. Now, just because he's got a 30-year mortgage doesn't mean he has to pay those monthly payments just as is. He can always pay more towards that. Okay, so this is something that you can use for a car payment. How much can you afford right now? So if you know that, oh, you know what, I can only afford to pay $200 a month for a car payment, you can figure out what is the APR rate. Typically, car payments are about 5 years, and then you can put in your negative 200, and it'll tell you how much of a car that you can be able to afford. So this is kind of neat to be able to use something like that. Okay, so they know how much they can afford, but he really wants to go for that 15-year mortgage. So how much can he afford using the 15-year mortgage? He recalculated it that way. And once he did that, he found out they were close, but he could only go as a maximum of about $122,000. So that condo that she found for $125,000 was a little out of budget, but she finds another one that's going to be a little bit less. Okay, so if we want to find the interest again, remember how much is he going to pay for the entire lifetime of the loan? Here's the payments, 12 times a year for 15 years. And we're going to subtract how much he can afford there or what he's borrowing. And we did the same thing for the 30-year. So it's really a better deal to try to take it for the least amount of time because you get a better APR, you pay it off quicker, you pay less interest in the long run there. Okay, so that's our other function there. All right, and then there's a few other examples you can take a look at here in the book, but I want to go over to the next section and talk about 401k plans here. Now, 401k plans are just one type of savings. Sometimes, depending on what field you work in, like education, we have something like this, but it's just called a different number, and I honestly don't remember what the number is. When you're in the healthcare field, it's something very similar again, only it's just under a different number, a different title. But they're all basically work very similar to a 401k plan. So what this does is it helps you save for the future. So you're going to save for retirement. Now, the good thing about it is if you're trying to save for retirement, when you put money away into a 401k plan, it does not get taxed. So this is before tax. So you're actually taking money out of your monthly paycheck, and it doesn't get taxed because it gets put away and it gets put into an interest-bearing account. The only thing is, once you retire and you start taking that out as like a monthly money, you'll get taxed in the future. So there's many different types of things that you can work through, but there's some money that you can put on aside before tax, or some money you can put on aside after taxes, and that's actually what I do. I do a percentage of my pay before and after taxes, so in different types of savings. So we're going to look and see the differences of putting money away before taxes. So we've got Celeste here, and she makes $36,000 a year. Her company is offering a 401k plan, but she's really not sure that she wants to participate in it because the minimum amount that she has to contribute is $100 a month, and she's not sure how much that's going to affect her paycheck. So we're going to work through two scenarios. If she doesn't invest into the 401k, based on if she does put $100 away. So either way, if I take her 36,000 and I divide that by 12, you can see that I get $3,000 as her monthly pay. Okay, so in this case, she's not putting money away. In this case, she is putting that minimum $100 away. So that means if we take her pay minus contributions, she's still at 3,000, and over here she's at 2,900. Now this is the amount you're going to be taxed on. So in this case, when they take her taxes out, we're going to say taxes are 15% of her pay. If you take 15% of that, she's going to be paying $450 in tax, which means she's going to take home $2,550. Now, since her amount was reduced by $100, she's going to pay a little bit less in taxes right now. It's only going to be $435, which means her paycheck is $2,465. So even though she put away $100 into the 401k, her paycheck is not reduced by $100 because she paid a little bit less in taxes. So she wound up paying a little bit less in taxes. In other words, she saved $15 in taxes there. Okay, so her take-home pay is $85 and $85 less than if she enrolled in that. So it's not a whole $100 less. Okay, now sometimes companies will match payments for 401k plans. So in this case, it says her company will match 50% of her contributions. So she gets pretty excited and says, okay, well, I'm going to put in $150 a month if they're going to be matching half of it. So let's work through this. So her take-home pay, okay, is going to be this, because if she has 3,000 minus 150, her take-home pay, her taxable income is going to be $2,850. That means her 15% taxes is going to be $427. So at 50, and so then we wind up seeing her take-home pay is going to be this. Okay. But remember, if she's contributing annually $150 a month for 12 months, that means she's going to be putting $1,800 away a year, but her company is matching that. they are putting half of that away, so they're putting $900 into her account. So she's going to be earning that extra $900 each year. So in her behalf, $2,700 is going to be put into her 401k savings each month. Now, what is the ratio of what the company is going to contribute to the amount of everything going in there? So if 2,700 is what's being put away a year and 900 is coming from her employer, that's roughly about a third that is the company's contribution there in the long run there. So that's pretty cool there. So, and you can see a sentence that we can say about that. Okay, now it says if she remains with the company for the maximum amount, that 40 years, it's saying that she's going to wind up contributing, let's see, from both her and the company. So $108,000 is going to be put into her account over the years. Some of it's hers, some of it is what the company is paying. So remember, the company's paying roughly about a third. So how much are they going to be giving her within that lifetime of the loan? So if we take a third of that total, that's going to be $36,000. So they're giving her basically over the lifetime of that 401k, they're giving her a full 1-year salary for free. And she is able to invest that money then for her future. Now, it just so happens that we can predict how much is going to be in that 401k plan in the future by using another Excel function. And this one is called future value. So if I want to know how much is going to be in my account in the future, I'm going to use future value. So once again, we're going to start with an equal sign, FV for future value. Then it's going to ask you some information. Okay, now if you put it into the Excel, it might ask you a couple other little things afterwards. Just ignore these two in the parentheses there. That's for some other types of functions there, but we're just going to be putting in those 3 amounts and that's it, just like we've been doing. Once again, the first is going to be the same as always. We're going to take the interest rate. So we're saying that our company is putting it away at 2.99%. Divide it by 12. Remember, don't forget to convert that to a decimal. Okay, total number of deposits. Okay, in this case, so they're not payments, they're actually deposits. So 12 times a year for 40 years, comma, and then what is being put away in her behalf each month? Well, she's putting away 150. The company is matching half of that. So half of 150 is 75. So if I add those two together, I get 225. So that's how I get this number here. So now if she puts this into Excel and hits equal, it'll tell her that over the lifetime of that loan, if she doesn't change the amount she's putting away, in 40 years, she's going to have over $207,000 in that account. Now, that's assuming that's all she's putting away. Now, a lot of times what they do for these 401k or similar savings plans, instead of saying a specific dollar amount, a lot of people put a percentage of their pay away, because if you get raises over the year, that'll also account for the raises. So a lot of times at the very minimum, you usually get cost of living raises there. So that'll count towards that. Okay, so how much more is in her account compared to what she invested? So remember, she's investing over the lifetime of that loan $150 a month. In other words, $1,800 a year for 40 years. Okay, so if we take that total amount minus everything she's putting away, which was $72,000 over the lifetime of that loan, she's making over $135,000 free money. Okay, so she's only putting $72,000 away. So that $135,000 is actually what her company is putting in and interest being earned. So she made that much money in that time there. So this is really a good deal to be putting something away like that and just kind of save it for that retirement there. Okay, so What if she increases her contribution to 200? Well, that means her company is going to put half away, which is 100 a month. So if she increases it, how much now is she going to have in that 401k over the lifetime of that loan? Well, once again, I want to know what it's going to be worth in the future, so I'm using future value. So equal sign, future value. Here is the interest rate in the form of a decimal, divided by 12, comma, 12 times a year for 40 years, comma, and then between her and the company, $300 is being invested in her behalf. So a negative 300, because it's coming out of someone's pocket. And so if she increases it, she's going to be over $277,000. Okay, so pretty good deal there. Okay, so here is another page that you really want to make sure you understand. Hint, hint. So how much was deposited by Celeste? So if she pays $200, 12 times a year for 40 years, she invests $96,000. How much by the company? Well, you could either take that, divide by 2, or 100 times 12 times 40. How much interest was earned on the account? So if we take what was put away for her and we subtract it from that total, that means over 133,000 was in interest alone. So how much did she profit by doing this with her company? So this is the interest plus what the company put away. So in this case, she made over $181,000 just by participating in this savings plan, this 401k savings. Now, many times your employer will have a type of a savings account. They don't all put money away or match funds, but a lot of times what they will do is they will help you manage that. So that's actually a pretty good deal, so that you don't have to go outside to a bank or some other institution, and they can do that and it'll come right out of your paycheck and all that. So, but a lot of places do match somewhat. And when you're going to be applying for a job, this might be something that you might ask about. Do you have any sort of, what are your benefits? What kind of insurance? Do you have any sort of savings plans? Do you match any funds that people put away? Those might be questions when they say, do you have any questions for us? That might be some of the questions that you might ask them. Okay, so we learned 3 different functions today. We learned payment, PMT. We learned present value, what I can afford right now, PV, and then we learned future value, FV. Now, you want to make sure you know the difference when you would use the 3 different ones. You will be asked probably questions on what would you type into Excel. So on a quiz or exam, so hint, hint, know what you would type in. And it just so happens that these 3 formulas are also on the formula sheet. So for exam number 2, you are allowed to use a formula sheet. So remember, we were able to look at that when we were looking under those financial things. And these are also here on this sheet. And also, there's some other things that will be on exam number 3 also. So I am going to be making sure that the testing center has a copy of this formula sheet to give you for exam number 2. You will be allowed to use it. So definitely look over your copy, save your copy. They're going to give you a copy of it. And make sure you know where everything is on that sheet so you know what to look up. Okay, but these 3 formulas will be on there. You just need to remember which to use in which situation there. Okay, and be careful. The most common mistake I see is people put FV equals instead of equal sign first. Remember, anytime Excel wants to calculate something, they always put an equal sign first. Okay, so those are the basic functions today and the basics of what you're going to be using for project number 2. So if you have any other questions, remember, feel free to email me. And then Monday's class will be a review. I'll review everything that you need to remember and make sure you review for exam number 2, which will be sometime next week. So whenever you're convenient to, to schedule that. And it has to be taken by